Yeah. Hey everybody, how you doing? It's the one and only King Johnny, aka John Canal, coming to you live this great Wednesday afternoon. I'm here to plead for justice for my recently murdered mother, and I'm just getting the hang of hangouts here. A lot of some problems still to be resolved. I really would like to have guest callers come on, but every time I try, the audio isn't present in the upload to YouTube. So I'll have to resolve that. But here is an example. I'm sending this. I'll send this to people you might know: Michael Rivero, Doug Owen, the Winnipeg Free Press editor, the Winnipeg Sun editors. I can send it to 50 people here today. The Prime Minister. I'll send it to members of Winnipeg City Council with my phone number, although I don't have my phone number present on this send. I normally do at the top. I say any questions or comments, please, interviews, call me, please. They don't. You see, the city council people, I'm telling them, look, mass murderers allowed to walk free in Winnipeg. The city refuses to allow a complaint of murder made. I'm reading this, right? There is so much for criminality transpiring in our dying world, and there are no honorable leadership screaming for justice. I'm telling them that people are being put into the hospital, as my mom was, and they say, you are now of comfort care. We didn't sign no comfort care. I didn't learn about any of comfort care until after my mom is murdered. Right? They say you're in comfort care. Well, what do you mean? Well, we're depriving her medications and we're going to poison her to die. Well, I call the police. The police say, oh, we're not allowed to get involved. What do you mean? You're going to tell me as an honorable officer you're not going to defend an innocent Canadian from being murdered? That's right, man. You see, so when you realize the reality, and I have the recordings of the chief medical examiner, like 5 phone calls. No, they do not allow autopsies, for all victims, numbering in the thousands, according to the chief medical examiner, right? And I'm telling him they said my mom had multiple organ failure, and she did not. They had pronounced her dead and then doctored the medical records, according to the doctor, of which you can hear me tell him over the phone call, right? He never returns my call. The police don't investigate, and city councilmen don't find it responsible as our governing body to get back with me to tell of why they're remaining inactive. That the doctors can say without your will to be put to death that you're now a part of this death program. And the interviews I have with the nurse, Charlene, she says people are there for 6 months until they die, sometimes 8. You're pronounced, that you have multiple organ failure, but they torture you for as many as 8 months. Wake up, man. It's hard to deal with. I know, apparently, you're having a very difficult time with this as just the casual listener, but I'll tell you, you have to read the story and get on it by forwarding the interest to defend innocent lives yourself, man. It's the chief medical examiner. I could play the audio. Maybe perhaps I will later on. But listen, let's get to the reality of what's transpiring. What can I do to save my mother's life? I'm going to run for the presidency and hopefully win, and then send the U.S. military in to arrest those responsible for this mass murder campaign. I've emailed many politicians at the federal level, and what do? They decide universally to make suicide legal. They're trying to, it appears anyway, that they're trying to fight for a way to escape these doctors guilty of premeditated murder, perhaps, say, well, you should have known it was when you signed for comfort care that you were destined to be murdered. But we didn't sign for that. Right? Understand why wouldn't the Free Press warn the citizens in Winnipeg to stay clear of the Health Sciences Center because they're murdering people en masse, according to the chief medical inspector for the entire province here of Manitoba. They don't. They insist that you will never have the humanity within yourself to go, you're not going to put up with this either. Who did they think you were? The Free Press and the Winnipeg Sun, they figure, and the TVs, they figure we're all left powerless to speak for ourselves because nobody wants to click like for any cause that brings about freedom. Most certainly. Certainty seems to be what we shy away from. $16 trillion was stolen from the American sucker, and I don't know of too many people other than myself that bring it up. That's a lot of money. Requires effort to decide yourself the certainty of the matter, because it's an audit that was commissioned by Congress, and they found that they had obfuscated 16 trillion. It's in total, there's a lot more than that in all the extortion and embezzling. But in this one particular crime scene, we have them dead to rights, and yet nobody wants to bring it up. Are we being censored and maybe perhaps not being made aware? Is that possible? Could be. But yeah, so I'm going to send this. So you know, get in it, think about it. You know, okay, now what I do here is I don't send the entire email. I can't, because it's marked then as spam. Anybody who sends an email with, it depends on what server makes the decision. But generally, if there's 4 or 5 links in it, spam. You know, on any subject under the sun, you know, here comes Pearl Harbor, yeah, it's spam. You put 4 links in there. So similarly with the idea of spam, what is that? You know, at Facebook, tell us when there's spam. It can be anything you disagree with. And if somebody explains to you that all vaccinations contain neurotoxins, the whole, you know, the philosophy behind vaccinations is that they put your body under attack, and that's why you can't find the exception. They're putting your body under attack. You know, with neurotoxins that cause you brain damage, they think that that's medicine. You see the certainty of how these words are drawn? You're going, oh, I don't know where to put faith in what John is saying or otherwise. It has almost nothing to do with me whatsoever. It's a fact, right? They put your body under attack as medicine. It's like going to the emergency room and saying, I got shot, doctor. What can you do? Go stand in the corner. We'll riddle your body full of bullet holes, and look at that. You're bleeding slower. It's a good thing you got here when you did. You know, it's the humor is born out of the pure wicked evil that is going here without being fairly addressed. But so there's an example. It's certainty. You know, Hillary most certainly cons American GIs to die needlessly so she can profit off their sacrifice, not in the defense of America the beautiful, no, in respect to committing mass murder in the millions for no good reason. If Saddam will do all that is asked of himself, why would we bomb the country? You're only going to limit our abilities to move freely about, warring for a situation or warring to bring about a situation that was there prior to the needless assault. See those words? You see that thought? That's not my possession. That's reality. That's what it is. Saddam isn't in violation of the UN. He isn't in violation of Congress, but it's Hillary who says, who cares? You know, let's vote for bombing and get the people who are trying to be reasonable out of the equation, because the TV, just like the free press, isn't going to allow the truth to prevail. And who was it speaking at that moment of history in March 2003? Of course, the one and only King Johnny. But who else? Well, millions of people on the street, yes. And that's right, the State Department, the ORHA. They were saying the exact same things I was saying. See, they weren't my possessions. They were the reality. And the ORHA was telling Congress that if you bomb the country, you're only going to sacrifice soldiers' lives needlessly. Why not just march them in as inspectors if you must? There's no reason to shoot anybody. If Saddam will do all that is asked, he'll even turn himself in, as it was with bin Laden. You see, the newspaper won't allow that concern for soldiers' lives to be drawn fair here, just like they won't speak a word in the defense of Winnipeggers being sent to their deaths as mass murder victims. Still, the chief medical examiner tells you himself, go listen to the recording, man. Recordings, you have to get the whole archive. To hear him earlier tell, no, he does not support autopsies for any murder victims that fall at the Winnipeg Health Science Center. That's the policy. Besides, you're real busy now. Just as everybody who's poor, who dies murder victim, their family survivors, you know, it's a very difficult struggle this is. I'm expected, as I will be doing, to file the criminal charges in a day or so and be my own lawyer. Well, I'd actually be the prosecutor, but it'll only stand if the judge is reasonable. considering there are thousands of murder victims, I find it hard to believe I'm the only one who's taken this avenue. But, many people, they succumb to these lies because they don't understand. While they're poisoning my mom, I say this must stop immediately, and the doctor agrees. But the nurses keep hounding, don't be cruel, don't be cruel. Like it's a form of mind control. If you didn't understand what was transpiring as a loved member of the soon-to-be departed, in uncertainty, you go, yeah, I don't want to be cruel. Are you saying I'm being cruel? Because they wouldn't know. But I did know. And I saved my mother's life, and I begged to get her out of there. And nobody would come to my aid. Nobody from the hospital. Nobody from the police. Nobody from the newspaper or the Magic TV. They let my mom die as complicit to her murder. CBC told me to stop bothering them. Can you imagine, citizens of Canada, what CBC did to my mother, refusing to defend her life? And it's not only my mother, they'll kill you too, my Canadian brothers and sisters. But the situation with the American rigged elections, Bernie makes no words to defend your rights from being stolen. In fact, he's claimed there is no election rigging. How evil is that? What happened, Bernie, man? Who do you think you're conning? You're willing to sacrifice Americans' lives, their soldiers, with lies, instead of demanding a fair accounting of who voted for who here. All the crowds of Bernie are, make Hillary into some kind of freak of pure wicked satanic evil. She can't gather a crowd of more than, it appears, 300 or 400 people. And she wins. She's got the more popular vote, does she, Bernie? Look at the video of Nevada. Who's conning who? Do you think you have an excuse for Bernie to go, yeah, well, maybe he just doesn't know. He's not aware. Aware of what? He's in an election campaign, and all his supporters are going, look at the facts. Look at the evidence of Nevada. They cast an election, or so-called cast a vote before the thing is even started, because they didn't want to have everybody realize there's nobody supporting Hillary in the entire fucking state or the entire auditorium. Nobody in the lines outside have a Hillary sign. So they have to close this scene as quick as can be. So they break all the rules and then hold the election to change the rules, so to steal, while nobody's even present yet because we haven't officially begun. No election rigging. And then she says, all those in favor say aye, all those in favor say nay. And it's clear that people disapprove. She doesn't care. Look at the way she hammers that gavel on the table. She really hates you, America. And you know Hillary's going to kill you. Fuck. Fracking. TPP. She practically wrote the thing herself, man. Monsanto. She's a Republican. Right? She was in an all-whites fucking country club up until just a couple years ago. So fucking crazy. Yeah, it's not on TV. So yeah, so let me show you some of the things I'm doing here. Facebook won't allow me to talk to the people of Earth, or won't allow me to talk to anybody at Facebook. All I did was post one thing. I'll show it to you here. All these shares are done by other people, not by myself. I'm not allowed to share. And they're incredible, but nobody wants to do it. So, well, but or some people do. It's, I just posted this stuff yesterday, but I'll show you the timeline here. I post this picture, right? What does it say? It says March 2015, Clinton said there was no classified information on her email server. More than 2,100 emails, the FBI say. Said all work-related emails. FBI director, no, thousands of work-related emails. Clinton said she had a private server, only needed, server for convenience. FBI says no. FBI says no. FBI says no. She's lying. She's getting caught lying, and that she doesn't go to prison for it. She knew she was dealing with classified information. So I post this. It was to 5 groups. Okay. which isn't a sin, to Bernie groups. And so what does Facebook do? They remove all my writings of all my life and say nobody can read anything John has ever said through Facebook. Because of posting this one image, they said it needed me, as a consequence of that action, to verify my phone number. So I say, okay, I've already had my phone number verified, but okay, if that's what you say I need to do to allow people to see this image, they don't want, it can't be allowed expressed. Okay, send me the code. They never send me the code. They won't send me the code. Right? So all my writing is removed from the world, and Facebook won't send me a code to verify. Like they send you a code over your phone, you write it down, and then you put it in the box, and you're free to go. They wouldn't do that. That's not an accident. How is that an accident? We're talking, you know a little bit about computers. That's not an accident. But so I contact another department that's sort of like the police of the Facebook, and I say, look, they're not sending me the code. Whoever is at that, whatever it is, here's my phone number. Phone me. Here's my ID. I give them my ID and my phone number. So they get back to me and say, oh, yeah, okay, you're good to go. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Because that was the argument. They said people couldn't be allowed to see this image of Hillary. And so they say, I'm good to go. So the next day, all I posted was this video to one group. And it's not even listed here. They didn't even let it go out to one group. And that's this. As soon as I posted one video to one group, they said you're suspended for 2 weeks. So my material is still here, but nobody can see it at any group that I posted to prior of anything I've said earlier. And how many others can see it? We can't trust unless we verify. But what crime am I committing here? What rule have I broken? And this is what I said in my appeal. I just sent one video to one group, right? And he's talking all about how religion and God are to blame and so on, partly. And so I'm at a critical argument against what he's saying. But they didn't give any time to judge the character of my writing, right? It was 1 second after I pushed the button, you're suspended for 2 weeks. One post to one group. Right, so what's the big sin here? God wills justice while others do not, is what I wrote. Fair say all the way, has everyone win a better day. Who did they think we were? Obama and co-warring democracies for Saudi Arabia's got to go, and we need to recoup our stolen loots. More than 16 trillion embezzled and extorted. Who of what military uniform would oppose that? Who's with being robbed of our humanity? Hands up. Do right. Vote president by paper ballots only, as then that way we'll have receipts. All this election rigging has got to go too. I demand we are commanded with self-respect. It's justice or bust for us. So much of our losses seem to be at our limited time to process these circumstances, while corrupt war crime politicians who now only openly rig our elections, while corrupt war crime politicians who now openly rig our elections run us further into victimhoods while smiling. And we, the people, just can't seem to be capable yet, as while getting robbed of our livelihoods, of uniting together on common principle. Fair say all the way means everyone wins a better day. Warring democracies to Saudi Arabia, no one alive on American territory would adhere to. Come on, get real. So how does Obama and the War Crime Congress get away from ourselves? Failure to communicate, I offer. The way I see it in the big picture is that censorship is tyranny. Freely communicating in the infinite wonder should scare no one. Being natural. Don't fear the truth, fear the lies. It is of our authority always to command. Coming from a guy named King Johnny, no less. Life is strange. See, what I mean is a police officer speaking publicly can't stand to stress it's going to rob us without a fuss. No, it has to lie or mislead if criminal intent is on its dinner plate. While speaking for fair say, while keeping nothing hidden and the lines wide open as to witness by our rights being dutifully represented, is the authority near every last soldier believes and does. believes and does puts their lives on the line to defend our flags. Yet, GIs blindly war democracies for Saudi Arabia and Al-Qaeda, all dying for the final escape of the 9/11 perps, which will never happen. Freedom spoken for justice coming is never absent this struggle to be commanded through true self-respect. We're all innocent until proven otherwise, and where we need evidence to form criminal allegations. It's called being civilized. Welcome home, stranger. See, was there even a swear word in there? Right? And I'm suspended for 2 weeks. And see, it's the only thing I posted. Right? I just finished getting verified by a process that didn't want to send me the code, but I send them my ID and talk to the so-called police of, the higher office. And they say I'm good to go. I could show you that. If I can remember where I go to see that. View activity log. Okay. Oh, it's not even here. It's something else. No, it would be still here. Well, I'll have to figure out and remember where those notifications are. But that's most definitely. Oh, update info? No, well, I'll look for it later. I don't want to waste too much time pussyfooting. But that's definitely the facts at hand here. And when I send the begging for my rights returned, they never return my pleads for freedom or my pleads for being fair. Never, right? To anybody else either. They don't. It's just the con. They have a grievance officer. Have you ever seen that on Facebook? They make a joke of it. They're insulting us, right? But they put it in the code. Like it's evil, I've argued, is the deceived disguised. We know you've done this on purpose, but they don't see it that way. They go, oh, no, you can't figure it out like that. You don't know what we're doing. Yeah, we do. You've taken the time where you're putting in the text string of when somebody pushes that button for a grievance, then it comes down and says, yeah, well, we probably got that country wrong. Oh, India is the string of letters that goes there. Grievance officer in India, you hit the button, they go, oh, yeah, well, we got that wrong. Well, you've taken the time to write that in as a string. And you can't, but there is no grievance officer. There's nobody to complain to. Just like the hospital, too, when they're murdering my mother, there's no complaints department. But see, look at these other things I've written. So what are these things that are present here? They're just on my timeline. And I will not, I do not will to risk sending it to anybody for fear they will again remove all my written works stolen, not allowed free expression to others who should be caring for these issues. You know, particularly this, like, how can we remain silent without honorable leadership while our lives are left poisoned by those who steal our elections? Where can anyone go in the English world to hear honest talk radio that isn't here to cheat us for further plunder? How can we come together to state we will to be civilized, where our rights really mean something? How can America war democracies in Saudi Arabia and Americans remain in neutral over the crimes against God and humanity? How? Bernie doesn't support having arrested those who are rigging the elections, while Hillary is a war criminal, and Trump, he wants to beat up anyone protesting against this bigotry while claiming he'll hire the lawyers to jimmy the system. And I go, Alex Jones and Mike Rivera, they're whoring out for Trump. He says 9/11 is pulled off by Muslims. If you knew who Mike Rivera was or Alex Jones, they go, that's inside job. And so, well, Mike Rivera doesn't. Well, neither of them really live up to, well, Mike Rivera isn't, I don't know. It's hard to say. I just want to go with the evidence. I'm going to go with the facts that the FBI were forbidden to investigate. Just as the police are forbidden to investigate this mass murder scene in Winnipeg that goes back somewhere near 10 years. Right? And it's the chief medical examiner that you can hear speak himself about thousands of people being put under this way. And no, there's no police. And yeah, we're depriving you medications and poisoning you to die. You will not justice for this place further by being silent? How can you not speak out? You find doubt You're scared of the truth. And yet, if you heard the chief medical examiner yourself, phone the Winnipeg Police Department. Well, they don't take phone calls, but you could try anyway and go, listen, I've been told you guys won't initiate a criminal investigation regarding the murder of John Canal's mother, Jenny. What's up? Why can't you do that? What's wrong with you to not realize you have a responsibility to enforce the Criminal Code of Canada against murder? How come? Right? Well, Michael said, well, you want to come into a private room with him and talk about it? Go listen to him say that. Who do you think, oh yeah, evil is fucking pretty powerful. I don't think so. Mike can't stand with an honorable cop who wouldn't immediately bring him into custody to face life-term prison sentence as complicit in murder. Go to a private room and talk about it. Right? But he's, I can't put it all on him, but, much of it, because why? Well, he doesn't have quite a good command of language. He's probably suffering from massive brain damage. He looks at me, gets all starry-eyed. I go, can I talk to your supervisor or the sergeant? No, you can't. I got it. He's not paying attention to the things I'm saying. And he decides that no complaint can be drawn by those at the Winnipeg Health Science Center committing a first-degree mass murder. Well, the chief medical examiner says, yeah, that's how it goes, man. We're not doing any autopsies. No autopsies allowed for all the murder victims out of the Health Science Center. He says so himself. We never signed to be suicided, to be murdered. What are you confused about? Do you think I'm stretching things? Do you think that this can't be happening in your city where you have newspapers likewise to sell that, gambling makes good economic sense while we criminally fleece those left unaware of who pays the fucking piper? Everybody pays the piper when you steal from the poor. I'm not against gambling. I'm against them stealing all the money because the newspapers won't allow you to understand mathematics on any matter. Social Security, you're told today in America on your front page newspapers, it's all disappearing. Now, I guess I don't know, but, Bernie just sort of whores out for the wickedest of evils yesterday. Now, I guess the newspapers are going, hey, he's going to be a whore for evil. Let's go all out. And they'll tell, yeah, Social Security is going to go bankrupt right away. Well, it's been criminally thieved from for fucking years and years and years due to the fact that they decide to ensure that you get less than 2% on a multi-trillion-dollar trust fund. Right? All these newspapers who say invest in the market, you're going to tell me they're not aware of what a trust fund is? None of them. Not a single newspaper. None of them are going to. No, they're going to tell you it's all gone away now. Those who steal your lives for further sacrifice, because they claim to be so much more powerful than you or I, who cannot afford ourselves, the rights that we supposedly would cherish by supporting wise words that speak in the defense of everyone being civilized. Let me just move my firewall out of the way there. And, and my, well, anyway, what else can I tell you about this? So, I can't share this, and so, what can I tell you? I'm just sharing this because I still support Bernie Sanders. It's just too bad Bernie doesn't support us. He refuses to acknowledge the widespread naked election rigging. In fact, this broadcast is no rigging transpiring. Sound like the leader of the free world to you? Nobody would think so if offered the facts to fairly judge themselves. Like of Hitler's naked war crimes, sacrificing American GIs needlessly. Hitler is the staunchest, most right-tard Republican alive. Pro-TPP, pro-fracking, pro-pharma drugging, pro-escape those who stole trillions, pro-bailing out private companies with even more trillions, pro-overthrowing democracies as admitted in her book too, pro-free trade with slavery, pro-war crimes, mass murdering. Bernie has many good ideas, but has failed us so terribly as clearly less than an honorable man to lie to die America for Hillary. Do right. Vote John Canal for president by paper ballots. And then that way we'll have receipts. Fair say all the way means everyone wins a better day. Remember, once I'm elected, Bernie and Trump, they'll be able to speak free their minds openly with what they think. And so on. Don't you think that this is well written? No? Maybe you do. Why is it that not a single person, look at this story. Most of these I have zero, no reactions, right? But it's largely because I can't share it with anybody. But particularly this, look at Alex Jones. How to defeat Black Lives Matter. What the fuck are you talking about? So this is what I wrote. Say you're a young black man and you see black folks being openly murdered by the police and maybe cowardly grunts back from committing lawless war crimes in Iraq or Afghanistan, all to escape those responsible for 9/11. So you state, hey, Black Lives Matter just as much as anyone else, man. Alex and his band of right-tard bigots would always think less of you for it. Why does Alex insist we must defeat Black Lives that matter? How about defeating criminals? Never on Alex Jones' bigot show of trying to divide our masses for further plunder. For example, Christians, Jews, and Muslims too are Alex Jones' nasty, quote, globalists, unquote. As God wills justice universally, no doubt would be too. Well, right now, people who are simply poor are being mass murdered in Winnipeg's Health Science Center, black, white, and brown, while all police services of Canada are forbidden to investigate. Alex Jones doesn't care to make a mention for our defense. Yeah, look, this email I'll send momentarily is addressed to Alex Jones also. Oh, it looks like my screen here is crashing. Uh-oh, that's not good. So, but I'll show you if I can. Yeah, here it is. No. Oh, well. But I'll most definitely send, as I have since they've been trying to murder my mom. For months, I've been sending every member of his staff the information. Not a single request for further information, right? To suggest no reaction on the numerous times I'm calling for their help that mass murder is occurring. They care not for the innocent lives of soldiers either. Khan to die in Iraq. He'll never, since the Iraq war began in 2003, allow you to understand how you're being conned to die here. He'll say the UN, the globalists, Saddam's not in violation of the UN. The UN's never here to defend us. Get real, man. It's a no-fly zone in Libya. They bombed the country through it. What the hell? In the resolution itself, it declares that Obama and America will do all that is required to defend Al-Qaeda to the last American GI. It's right in there, right? Or that, you know, that Benghazi will be defended by the Air Force and will insist that, you know, so that's why they don't attack, right? They have this formal arrangement with the head of Al-Qaeda that they're the forces of America, Al-Qaeda, to boycott all elections and kill people indiscriminately. But look at this. So I didn't finish reading it, but I mean, it's pretty damn good stuff, right? Not a single click for like, not a single share. Right? But this is Facebook. They won't allow me to share this. I'm not allowed to share that information. Right? Because I committed this sin forwarding one video to one group. And all my history of Facebook is like this. As soon as this is taken, I might get to say a couple of things, then I'll be suspended again. They won't tell me why. I'll beg them, why? What did I do wrong? No. You broke the rules. And you don't get to hear the accusation against your character. You should know what you did. How? One video to one group, me speaking intelligently without any swear words about God and being blamed for all bad things. Well, the true suspects leave the scene because people can't pay enough attention to following probable cause any longer. Being a constitutionalist, true, is far too difficult for me or you, according to Alex Jones, who holds the cutoff switch, to not allow us to freely communicate. But then again, to have no care is important for you to be made aware of this circumstance. He doesn't want the better ideas to prevail. He doesn't want. When does he ever have an open discussion with anybody? Right? It's always to defend his lies. You know, I don't remember anything. There isn't anything in the Constitutional about puppets and the globalists. These are fictions. These are lies of the minds of bigots. How is a Christian, Jew, or a Muslim not a globalist? Of course we are. Willing to be fair here. It's called the Golden Rule. And while we deny that privilege, it still applies. We cheat others, we're truly cheating ourselves. Alex Jones doesn't want us to be civilized. And then other people, you know, Alex Jones, Rob Dew, yeah. Never, you know, he doesn't like free communications either, but he's got this little thing here where he says, oh, Facebook is censoring people. What are they doing? Oh, they won't let the right-tards talk. And then the one example he gives is of a woman who was never censored. She admits it. They did stop her account, but she just simply phoned them and they turned it back on. How do you phone Facebook? Right? They didn't explain that to us. Right? But it's the one example they give. Well, what about all these other people, like people who speak for the interests of innocent Palestinians? Because they've got that spam thing. Right? Spam, oh, your account's terminated. You're a spammer. What is spam? Anything. Doesn't matter. Google Plus does the same. You know, it's, well, that's spam. You know, Facebook is already policing how many posts you make to what group or whatever. So they claim for the reasons why all these other people get suspended, not telling any of us what rights we've infringed or why we should be denied equal access. They don't want me to speak because I'm super intelligent. Who else can explain the derivatives market? Nobody. It's embezzlement. It's not bound by law. It's just a conspiracy of two parties conspiring together to go, I'll pay you $50 billion for a piece of paper. You pay me $50 billion for a piece of paper that's worthless. But as soon as they pay each other $50 billion, nobody's out except for those who hold pensions at that bank because they got to pay themselves commissions. They've produced nothing, done nothing for nobody, but empty the vaults dry in 2008 and say they need to be bailed out. Well, where did all the money go? Nobody's asking that question in 2008 except for King Johnny. There might have, well, no, I can't. I know there's very few people that have that mind, have the mind to understand how credit is issued and what a derivative is. It's particularly crafty to hold because it's not bound by definition through law. So you'll get websites that are really quite put together quite nicely. They'll say it's this, it's that, you know, collateralized debt obligations and so on. That's nonsense. It's whatever you want it to be because it's not bound legally. So what they use it for is embezzling, just as I described, is exactly why all the banks went empty. And then you had to buy back what they said was toxic. Why was it toxic? Because it didn't represent an opportunity for any more embezzling because all the money is gone. Right? So Bear Stearns, for example, they have $77 trillion one day, and then the next day they're belly up, completely broke, and what are you going to do? Well, you have $77 trillion yesterday. What happened to all that money? Well, it's worthless now. It's called toxic because when they try to sell it to somebody for $50 billion, they'll say, well, I'll buy it from you for $50 billion, but you got to buy my piece of worthless junk for $50 billion. Don't you know how this embezzlement is done? And so because there's no more money to be had because they've embezzled all the funds out of the vault, they say, now, American sucker, buy this toxic asset. You see how this crime scene is truly? This is certain, right? You've got to support my bid to be your duly elected president because I can get so much of this accomplished for the betterment of everyone by detailing how they stole that $16 trillion. Getting all that money back plus interest means you're not paying taxes for generations if you do the right thing. If you let truth be your path to victory, it shall be ours, fairly represented. If you will to deceive yourself by not supporting a wise candidate such as me, having so many answers to sit honorably in the president as the president, what you got somebody else you're going to vote for? Who else are you going to vote for? Trump, who blames 9/11 on Muslims? Not a single Muslim has even alleged to have played a part in 9/11. None of these guys are Muslims. Muslim is a religion. How can you ban all Muslims from entering or living free in America? It's a religion. That means you will to do right by others. You respect Christ Almighty as quoted more than Muhammad in the Quran. And Genesis through Deuteronomy. This is what Muhammad teaches. You have to respect these words. They're of God Almighty. No, it's the virgins, right? So Facebook is just, drowning in ignorance and evil because Facebook don't have a problem. And that's the one thing that Alex Jones does bring up. And no problem spreading evil, advancing the murder of police officers and so on. Well, argumentative in a sense. I'm so much pro anti-censorship. I don't want any censorship. We will decide ourselves as to what actions we take are fair or other, and if they're unfair, then the laws should apply. But there's a lot, people for bigotry. Bigots don't get censored on Facebook. No, intelligent discourse, or those that speak for the interests of innocent Palestinians. Okay, so let's check out my Google Plus disaster here. Not a disaster. It's just, it's just hard to get people concerned about their falling lives. But I don't do too bad, I guess. I mean, I have 849 followers. I don't know where they all are, and they're almost all recent people or people that are contributing in this moment now. If you ever do this, you ever go to Google Plus and you take the suggestions, you'll get accounts that are fucking from 2008 or just expired accounts. And I had done that for the longest time until I realized what was going on. Now, if I could just find the address for this, I could forward the show. See, for Hangouts, you can't. Well, that's just how it is. You can't notify a whole bunch of people that your show is on, but you can by just getting the address of the video. And I'm not doing well here. The computer here is not doing so well, so I guess I won't touch that for now. So let's just go a little bit through some of the things that I posted today and maybe yesterday. And you witness for yourself, like maybe perhaps you're not seeing these things from your side. I know that's the case at hand when I do scans with alternative ISPs. I'll scan my pages from Poland, and all the people in Poland, they're not allowed to hear what I write. Or Russia too. They're not allowed to hear those kind of words, man. And again, in this, there's not a single swear word here, okay? But this is Ryan Dawson explains Bernie Sanders' true commitment to war crime behavior. And as I've already talked to you, in many of those, his points are all excellent, Ryan Dawson's. But the position that's so naked right now is that he says there's no election rigging. We know he's lying, and he wills America to die. Right? He doesn't will you to be defended fair. He has no concern about defending the glorious good old red, white, and blue. That's a fact. Right? He's going to lie to you. Right? Don't be ridiculous. The evidence is as I say, endless practically. It's ridiculous. Every scene, purging the electorate, destroying 1 million ballots for Bernie. Yeah, well, that's why we'll get them next time. Bernie says the elections aren't important, and Bernie fans all boo. What do you mean the elections aren't important? Fuck. But this is a particular. I only do this in hopes that some of Ryan's fans are more, and they are a little bit more educated. For the general YouTube audience, you might kind of be pissed off at this because you're gonna maybe. What might your reaction be when I read this to you? You may start hating blindly because you might tell yourself, well, I never heard any kind of information like that from any place. In fact, when I do a search on the internet of the entire earth, I just see you, Johnny, and Obama, and a little bit of Ryan Dawson, and a guy from the Washington Post, and 2 kids worldwide. So, well, anyway, it's really quite a remarkable scene of pure wicked evil that is addressed in this video by Ryan Dawson towards the end called Bernie Sanders to the Woodshed. And here's what I wrote. Hey, Ryan, awesome info. There's an important piece of information absent on how the Department of Ed came to have $51 billion, more than all the bigwigs combined. This is a new thing since the inception of insured student loans. The story is fantastic and evil. Prior, what it was that JP Morgan would issue the loan, but cover zero of the credit issued. So Obama came in and stated this was a, quote, no-brainer, unquote. And in Obamacare, Obama removed the right of JP Morgan to get $60 billion for doing nothing but issuing the checks to have the Department of Ed do it instead. That is where all those billions come from. Prior, all that money would disappear into the wallets of those who knew they did nothing to educate Americans on such takes. All that money taken from students to be educated will not be spent in gaining knowledge on how this credit is issued. The credit is paid for by the duped public that must pay taxes or go to prison, who are told the minted money is spent for education, and instead it is given to the department. It's like paying taxes for roads and giving the money to the Department of Transportation to do other things with. If the Department of Education wanted Americans educated as its objective, Then Americans would ask, whose interest does the department serve to insist students fork over their lives with compound interest, not to pay back for the education, but the piracy of not knowing it is and always was the public body of America that truly footed the bill, appearing that free education would be cheaper as being caught. I could have written this a little bit better here, like a new paragraph maybe, and worded different, but appearing this does that free education would be cheaper as being cost effective. Isn't that amazing? Like, that's how it appears. You know, do you see? Okay, I'll finish reading this and then I can give some commentary. The schools already received the money loaned they came was needed. The schools already received the money loaned they claim was needed. Then the government of Obama claims that such luxury must be made to have an unneeded toll. Now, if there was a transparency on this, a responsible governing body would insist on looking where all the money goes to. Certainly not to the teachers or as the students' welfare, it would seem for the most part, I'm betting. And I wrote this just before I listened to the last 2 minutes of Dawson's video of where he actually gets into that to claim just as much. This money doesn't go to teachers or students for anything. They just privately take it themselves as institutions that are committed to warfare as indiscriminate slaughter. So there's no attempt here. Well, anyway, so what does this mean? It means, like, who can comprehend what I've written? You have to be a fucking genius, fucking 5-star King Johnny type. Nobody can understand these kind of words. It's too complicated. Maybe not. Maybe you can. But, you know, that's why we fail in education, is because we have to be educated to understand. JP Morgan covers zero of the credit. When they issue those checks to kids with guaranteed student loans, they take zero risk. Then, of course, even if they did cover it, they're still taking zero risk because the loan is guaranteed by the tax-paying sucker. They're taking no risk and just being showered with tens of free billions of dollars, doing nothing but issuing a check. So Obama changes that, says it's a no-brainer. He's quoted in the Washington Post when he makes this decision. It's a no-brainer. Like, you're giving away all this money to JP Morgan for doing nothing. If you just have the Department of Education issue the checks, all that money comes to its rightful place, right? Because that's what's wrong with Obamacare. It's so perverse and profound that there is an intelligence to chaos, and evil is exposed through Obamacare. If you knew what Obamacare was, if you knew what I'm talking of is true, look it up for yourself and understand this matter. It's difficult. It's probably one of the most difficult things I talk about, right? Because you've got to be familiar with a whole bunch of issues here to grasp this. As I'm sure Ryan is probably fairly close, or I can learn even more things. I'm hoping he'll comment on that. So I got one like there. I got 849 followers and one like. Now I've got a Facebook, all mass is energy and energy is of, it's an article I wrote on Facebook about the nature of death. Not a single like there. Again, 849 followers. Okay, what's this? Bernie Sanders endorses Hillary Clinton. She must become our next president. Don't be stupid. Vote John Canal for president by paper ballots only. All this election rigging demands a restart. We're going to go with the better ideas here, people. Check out my threads. Justice done is freedom won. And we got a comment here from the black man, Jill Stein. No likes. Oh, here's that article. How do you explain death to young children? No likes. Look at this. All masses of energy, and energy has a timeless component to it, as the Big Bang is right now, and two, a position of no dimension, no time. Sure, atheists need to lie here, son, because science is something that they are universally terrified of. See, for me to explain this, how long is that going to take? A couple hours. You know, if you had no knowledge of what I'm speaking on. You know, a position of no dimension, no time, this is what we discovered in the 1930s with the Maxwell. Maxwell's smart, very smart. Smart guy he is. Maxwell, smart guy. Where you split a photon of light. See, a photon of light, what is that? It's a particle or it's a wave. It's depending on how we want to look at things. As a wave or a particle. As a particle, you split the wave, so the wave's going off in opposite directions. Now, if you change the polarity of the particle attribute of the wave, say 20 miles out, and the other and from the other side, 20 miles out too, with atomic clocks to measure the consequence, You change the polarity of the wave or the particle, and then at the other end where the atomic clock is, it finds it instantaneous. There's no distance or no time that transpires through that entire distance. So a property of all energy is consistent of no dimension, no time. It's incredibly profound because it's also a reflection of our minds. We are electrical beings. And so once you understand that attribute of physics, you can actually have you can creatively interact with your consciousness, which has done me wrong beyond an ability even allow forgiveness. I cannot forgive life for treating me so terribly, in having my mother's life stolen from me. And where was God to warn me? I mean, God or no God, we have to defend ourselves here. Otherwise, we're going to fall further as crime victims. God does not have an ability to warn people, apparently, that bombs are going to be dropping on their schools by Obama and co. While warring democracies, outside of the words that come out of our mouths. So maybe it's not that I can't have forgiveness. I can't, my whole concept of believing that, there's a guiding force. True, of course, there is to hold us as alive, but that force seems very impersonal and not out to, out to give us the freedom of which we have. But if we don't stand up for ourselves, nobody else will. But so maybe, nobody wants to like this because, but it's really this. I'm talking about the nature of death here is where I'm getting into on this. But I'll read a bit more. Hopefully I'm not boring you too much. But exposing them to their exposing them to live their lives without a measured care truly for you or me willing to be civilized, as honorable or God-loving. They're into murdering all infants before measuring the contents of vaccines, for example, as for why they are heavily laced with neurotoxins that cause massive brain damage in every instance. But anyway, as I was saying, so all this has died in a way like the Big Bang. So all that has died, pardon me, in a way like the Big Bang are here in another way, potentially, me and you alive as well included. But in passing, without our bodies and minds, we would be as good as gone forever into the future, not existing anymore. Downer. But though, here is where it gets curious. It is of our current state now, as I was mentioning. Then, son, look at this. Numerous videos from NASA, like a great many atheists work there. Likely a great many atheists work there. And every time those conscious entities without masks move within the camera range, everyone goes silent at NASA and every last NASA press conference. And near everyone else of the Western world at YouTube too do. Furthering our curiosity at witnessing near widespread contempt for the advancement of science, the advancement of humanity, if it indicates something not yet labeled as understood. Looking deeper into how labels are created, they are born always from division to be cogent. Very strange, where in a sense we need to deceive ourselves to make sense of an otherwise found boundless state, like those thoughtful balls of energy holding their ground on nothing at all. What's that, son? I'm full of it? Well, perhaps you're right. I love you though, right? I wish we could put to death by fair public trial those at the Winnipeg Health Science Center that murdered your mother too. How people can be so evil and unkind to me and you to not express a great anger over the city of Winnipeg forbidding all police services from investigating the murder, all because of their hatred for our kindness and great wisdom, where we express how the city not only mass murders the poor in the thousands, but also steals from everyone through their rigged gambling enterprises, and people can't care enough for our plight by clicking like for being human. I'll never know, son. I never even want to know now of their abject cruelty as hatred to us, what with Jenny Canal, the most beautiful, caring woman who has ever existed in our timeless lives, to be so badly tortured and beat up by nurses Delaney and Colette up there on the 4th floor at the 4-H, then murdered, while people can't care enough for her or anyone else. Well, now the city with Dr. Collister, the multimillionaire mass murderer, tries to steal our humble home. I can't stop crying either, son. Life was never meant to be so cruel to me or you. But look at that. So it's, what do you tell your son, or what would you explain? How do you explain death to your young children? This is just, I guess, but to have no likes, and it was yesterday, and I'm supposed to have 850 followers. Okay. And so here, as I showed you on Facebook, here's that same post with Alex Jones. Say you're a young black man being openly murdered. Why does Alex insist we must defeat Black Lives That Matter? You know, being evil. Got 2 likes, no comments. Again, 849 followers. Where are these people? Winnipeg Police Department is forbidden to investigate the continuing mass murders of the poor transpiring Winnipeg Health Science Center because the city forbids such defensive action to transpire. Who cares for thousands of poor people, first-degree mass murder? Not the Winnipeg Free Press or the Magic TV claiming they would. We are helpless to speak for justice because all police are likewise satanic horrors of evil. I don't buy it, and you shouldn't either. Look the matter up to judge yourself. Okay, so I'm just going to stop reading here. But look, you know, it's not. So the newspapers, you know, what would you be compelled to figure if you were in this position? Like, how can there be no likes? I got 11 likes on this one. That's a little bit better, but still, like holy fuck, man. Nobody's saying, well, you know, it's hard to believe what you're saying. No comments. You know, and then here's that Bernie thing that I showed you at Facebook. It's just too bad Bernie doesn't support us. He refuses to acknowledge the widespread naked election rigging. Well, you wouldn't want to like this one? Stereotypes. How do you dispel the stereotypes placed on atheists? What stereotypes? I'm just going to pause there. What do they talk? What stereotypes? What are stereotypes that people describe of as to be atheistic? What stereotypes? What are you saying? What do they all adhere to as the same? Being scientifically irrational? They don't want the facts? So here's what I wrote. What stereotypes? All we know for certain is that they lie. Selling no intelligence is knowable of life separate from their own genius. And as a consequence of being irrational and blind evil, they universally support attacking helpless infants. Why? Because like vaccinations and God, they don't want to hear the science of measuring. Instead, they know better than everybody else by stealing innocent lives through censorship without objections. They, as admitted, get erections with no evidence is offered for another's guilt, just as spoken with certainty. Pause. This is a story that they did two posts earlier, which I wrote at great lengths on. How can you tell us you're getting an erection over those that say, you know, the Zarnev brothers did the Boston bombing? The guy's just saying they get erections. It's all erotic. You get to accuse people of crimes without any evidence whatsoever. And then they celebrate their, you know, it's like what's the difference? They're the worst attributes of what we describe to being as satanic. They want to kill innocent people. Right? They go, oh, you're using a stereotype. Well, anyway, you know, they don't, how they bastardize God's will to be fair here is spoken of by every prophet the world over. It means we should be treating ourselves fair. They don't want to do that. Perfect case to point to is Obama, the Antichrist, born democracies for Saudi Arabia. Name one atheist worldwide there that is truly honorable and not a lion, cheat, and thief of our natural goodwill to do right by others, refusing the facts that Saudi Arabia's satanic is ungodly, demonic war crime dictatorship, best friends of Congress in Israel, or that 9/11 police investigation was not allowed to happen, and never to point out liquefied iron flowing from the towers like water. No, as bigot thieves of freedom from everyone, they'll, as murderous, false accusing bigots, blame religion or Muslims as responsible, and be done further away with our forsaken soldiers' lives as not truly cared for, just as themselves. What's wrong with trying to do good for innocent others? No comments, no nothing. 849 followers. Got to be at least 700 of these are active people that have decided to follow me. I mean, it's a thing with Facebook. I mean, look at the numbers I got at Facebook. Although I haven't been getting any new ones since I've been forbidden to post. But my screen is all messed up. It might have to do with just the Google Hangouts running and everything else. I can't show you. But I got like, 980 followers or something like that. Right? That's a lot of people to have no comments, no likes, no nothing. What are they doing then? What's going on? I suspect, as I know for a fact, as it is with Google Plus, it depends what country you're in. You know, a lot of people aren't going to have the right to read this. Maybe no Americans have the right to read this. People want to be my fans because they read something I wrote, but they don't see this material perhaps. How can we remain silent without honorable leadership while our lives are left poisoned by those who steal our elections? Stealing the primaries, then asking for my vote is like stealing my car, then asking for gas money. You're drunk, Hillary. Go home. And then here I am. Here's was censored at Facebook for posting this. Oh, that offends our delicate sensibilities. This cannot be expressed. You know, people being hung because they're allegedly gay, all financed by the American taxpayer, and they financed Hillary's election campaign. Censored at Facebook. Bernie's activist opposed to the truth, and all I received was streaming accolades. Moderator stated such information was not wanted. Right? Bernie moderators. I don't know, man. But you can get I took a scan of the image just as he's saying nobody can read such material. And what was I saying? The demon witch wills to kill America with her lies. The elections are openly rigged. While TV and Alex Jones, the enemies, refuse words to be spoken in our fair defense. Look at the Nevada video. Then witness the evil of TV mind control that told of Bernie supporters being unruly. Look at the trillions stolen through extortion and embezzlement. Look at warring democracies for Saudi Arabia that openly bribed the demon witch to support the indiscriminate mass murder of even more. What she does is satanic. Being with Congress as pro-terrorist Al-Qaeda sympathizers, an enemy of freedom, an enemy of America, an enemy of life. Justice done is freedom won. Do right. Consider freely voting for John Canal or your other favorite candidate as president with a paper ballot only. Why? As then that way we'll have receipts. One person, one vote for president. All this election rigging demands a restart. Who do they think we were? Get real. Okay, now I'm going to try something different here. I'm just going to see if I can play this within the screen. There's that. I could play some of this Ryan Dawson video too. Might be cool. I just want to try, see if this will work. Oh, I can't do it there either. Let's see what happens here if this works. Yeah. Hello. Oh, hey, how you doing? My name is John Canal. I have some incredible information to parlay your way. Willing I am to be the next duty-bound, duly elected president of these United States, standing for real freedom. That's where our rights are truly respected. We are innocent until proven otherwise. Justice done is freedom won. Trillions of dollars have been embezzled and extorted. Now I'm looking at the internet and I see, there's very few people who have this kind of knowledge. And I'm not unfamiliar with the difficulties in trying to express ourselves when we gain knowledge, such as the Department of Education and where all these tens of billions of dollars have come from. I understand the issue, but even I have a difficult time expressing to others to have you understand easily without having to get into all the difficulties of knowing how credit is issued and so on. But, it's important to realize that the Department of Education is clearing billions and billions and billions of dollars. Where does all this money come from? It's students that are told you have to pay back the debt you borrowed plus interest. Well, who lent the student the money? The American people did, right? It's a guaranteed student loan as well. If they fail to meet their obligations, it's the American public that once more will be made to cover the loss. The credit comes from the American people. And all the years since the inception of guaranteed student loans, all the money's been just going to JP Morgan for doing nothing. All they do is issue the check. So Obama comes in with Obamacare, and inside Obamacare, it says all we're going to do is just issue the checks from the Department of Education. Thereby, the outstanding debt that these children are told they owe will go directly back to the department itself. And they're not going to be, there's no reason for doing this. If the credit is of the American people, why is the student obligated to pay back such monies? In other nations, they stop it right there and they go, well, look, it's a sacrifice we're willing to make because we want people to be educated. Now, if you take that position, then as a responsible government, you want to find out where all the money's going. And as it is under Americans' authority, very little, practically almost nothing of all the money the student's obligated to pay goes to the child's education or to the teacher. That's got to be fixed, okay? So we can witness what our struggle here is. We go, oh, it's so corrupt. Me too, you know, it's hard to express this understanding. And so if we seek all throughout the English world through the powers of our internet, we can discover there's very, 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 very few people who have this knowledge. Who has this knowledge? Obama has this knowledge. I have this knowledge. A couple of kids and somebody at the Washington Post. That's it. And it's so critical to understand, you know, how this operation goes down. So it's got to be corrected. We got to be able to speak freely on issues that involve the sacrifice of Americans, their lives. You know, American soldiers are sent to die warring democracies. And the pro-Bernie-crats or whatever, you know, honorable people for the most part, or they believe they're trying to be, but are unfamiliar with the reality that Bernie supports warring democracies. You know, they get confused here and they don't know what I'm talking about because they haven't seen it on their magic TVs or even much at all on the internets. You know, Alex Jones will never allow his cult members to understand the reality, being truthful. He needs to deceive you. Though he tells you almost the entire case as it stands, where America is backing ISIS, backing Al-Qaeda. It's not a theory, right? It's the head, Balaj Nastav, his name is. So he's regarded as the emir of Al-Qaeda. You know, Bin Laden's second lieutenant, right? He's hired by the Obama administration once they indiscriminately slaughter maybe more than 1 million people in Libya to run the military dictatorship. For a brief stint, and then heads up the Free Syrian Army. That's right. The guy known as the head of Al-Qaeda heads the Free Syrian Army. Right? So it's on some Syrian news websites. And that's it. Oh, and Bob Unruh from the Associated Press covered it. Right? So it's a reporter who's been with the Associated Press for 30 years. Right? But nobody will forward that story because it's certain. So we see that this is really, well, we can see that in many different instances where Americans are falling plundered as crime victim, when a certainty can be drawn, very few people have the honorability to go, hey, a fact's a fact, man. You can't find plausible deniability here. Right? They stole $16 trillion. You know, if you seek out the information, you find that there was an audit done commissioned by Congress, and they found that $16 trillion had been vacated the coffers of the American public. As a criminal act, they kept it top secret from the Federal Reserve, top secret from Congress. But a fact's a fact. Right now, how many people on earth are going to tell you that? Very, very few, because there's no escape. It's a fact, right? It's not my opinion. Right? They said the 16, and then we track it down further. Why? I know why and who and how, right? Take 20 minutes or a half an hour to explain. But briefly, in a few seconds here, JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs particularly are facing criminal charges pressed against them by the Bank of Germany, Deutsche Bank, and the Bank of Scotland. They've approached the SEC and said, we want criminal charges pressed. And they would lose. No doubt the evidence is unmistakable there also, that they committed financial fraud against these financial institutions in far distant lands. And so what they did is they figured to escape prison sentences, they'll just mint for themselves $16 trillion. Who's going to be the wiser? Everybody finds these matters far too difficult to comprehend, let alone even try to investigate for yourself. We all lead very busy lives. But you can track down that, yes, the audit found that they vacated America of 16 trillion. And this money went to those that were pressing criminal charges. Once they received the money, the charges disappear. The SEC is in violation and need to be arrested themselves as complicit in this crime. They knew full well that JP Morgan had committed securities fraud. They sold what they knew were bogus AAA securities that were worthless to those who manage policemen pensions in Germany. So these are policemen, right? You're stealing from the pensions of policemen. So they so they press criminal charges, right? So they get all of those policemen pension beneficiaries, they get all their money back, and then all the extra money, I don't know where all that goes, right? But that's where that sacrifice of America as crime victim went to cover up the criminal losses of those in distant lands that were defrauded by Goldman Sachs. Right? And there's all kinds of other crimes here. Insurance fraud, embezzlement, extortion, all derivatives are embezzlement, if you understood. So we can really witness why America why humanity suffers. You know, who has the knowledge to express such wisdom? Only I. Yes, I. Also known as King Johnny. I know of nobody else on earth who can explain that to you. And I can explain it to you probably fairly quickly. A derivative, it's not bound by law. So this is where its peculiarity in escaping our authority thus far has escaped our scrutiny. Because it's not bound by law in definition, you have, probably for the most part, honorable people, but they're lost, confused somewhat, where they'll try to explain to you what it is. Whatever they say, just forget it because it's not bound by law, right? All it is an agreement, essentially, right? It's an agreement that I'll claim your piece of paper is worth $50 billion. It represents no real capital, nothing. It's just, I'm breaking it down to its lowest denominator, right? To understand every single derivative is just an agreement between two parties. And in every single instance, and every time without exception, it's the crime of embezzlement. How? I got $50 billion piece of paper, right? And now what makes it a $50 billion piece of paper? Because you're willing to give me $50 billion for it, right? And what is it? It's nothing, doesn't matter. There's no loss here. Now you're going to give me that $50 billion. Now, the only reason you're going to give it to me is that I'm going to give you $50 billion for your little piece of paper. Every derivative since the beginning of derivatives is exactly as I claim right here and now. Now, if I'm incorrect, anybody could say, look, you're wrong here, John. It doesn't happen, right? Because I know what I'm talking about. You can have derivatives, as the Magic TV will teach you, that are about 980, what was it? No, I think it was 780 pages on 60 Minutes. They tried to educate you, right? It's about this big of a stack of paper. And they go, John, no, derivative. You try to read this. Now, I'm familiar with law. It's going to take 10 years, man. It's fine legalese. It's a con. Can't you see? It's a con. But anyway, you break it down to what it is. It's just an agreement between two parties. You're going to give me $50 billion. I'm going to give you $50 billion. In every case, it's always the same. For those who know how this game is played, right? If you and I as investment firms understand, I'm not going to be rooked a nickel. I'm too smart to be a loser here. I never lose. And you never would lose either if you understood how this crime went down. Now I give you $50 billion, you give me $50 billion. Who's out? Nobody. That's the only agreement they're ever going to come to in the history of all derivatives. Right? This is true. So now I've got $50 billion. You got $50 billion. We're in no difference. What's the difference now? The only difference is that we got to pay ourselves commissions. And that commission is coming out of the policeman's salary or out of the policeman pension, out of any pension, out of all the deposits that are held by the bank is what they did in 2008. Sure, there's lots of other frauds, no doubt. But this is the primary crime scene that causes all the banks to go bankrupt, so they collect all at the same time. Bear Stearns, for example, it goes bankrupt with $77 trillion. How is that possible? Right? Nobody asks this question except me on Earth, even in other foreign languages. Right? I'm not saying I'm high and mighty. I'm saying, look, witness reality. I'm just trying to be truthful with you. Okay, so you got 50 billion, this money, they're getting commissions. Bear Stearns has $77 trillion. The next day, they have no money. It's all gone. Just like all these other banks go, it's all gone. Well, how can that be? Bear Stearns still has all these little pieces of paper. This one says it's worth $50 billion, Johnny. What are you saying? How come this piece of paper the day before was worth $77 trillion and the next day when they claim bankruptcy, it's worthless? Because all the money's been vamoosed from the vaults in commissions, right? And now that Bear Stearns has a $50 billion piece of nothingness, here, you want to buy my $50 billion piece of nothingness? They could ask, which they wouldn't because they know already how this works. Nobody's going to give them $50 billion, right? They don't have $50 billion to give in exchange. So all that becomes what they call toxic. It's crime. It's okay. So now you've got embezzlement. Taking money out of the bank like this through trading derivatives is the definition of embezzlement. Now what do you got going on? Why would you want to give tax money to these bankers who say, all my fraud is now worthless because I got no more money in the vault. Please bail us out. All that money has to come back, plus interest. These people have to be tracked down worldwide and be put into prison so America can recoup at least $16 trillion right off the start, right? Some estimate the estimates are done mostly through mathematics by adding out how much was given thoughtlessly, fraudulently, but somewhere near $27 trillion goes to these individuals who have done nothing productive. They've done nothing, right? They say we committed all this criminal fraud, we have toxic debt or toxic assets, buy this from us. Why would Congress say, yeah, that makes good sense. Don't feed the fucking homeless vet. Give trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars to people who aren't even Americans. You know, so that's a pretty serious issue that I, as your duly elected president, would be tackling, immediately. Communicating freely. You know, I'll be taking open line calls. I take open line calls here at Hangout, which I've used prior to broadcast. Right now, I'm going to do this as a pre-recorded situation, but there's audio issues with Hangout. I've seen other people fumble in the same kind of way, where you have somebody call in, but their audio isn't present on the stream to YouTube, and I haven't quite resolved that. There must be an answer, because otherwise, if there was, boy, that Hangouts is really something awesome. You can have multiple camera shots, and the speed is quite remarkable. But yeah, so that's important. It's important to know that you're warring democracies. It's important to know that you had, well, you know, Trump, interestingly, his speech he gave yesterday, where he says ISIS is created by Clinton. You know, if he gave us a little bit more of the facts behind his allegations, you know, she would be facing life-term prison sentence or death by American Patriot firing squad. Right? She admits, but anyway, Assad is democratically elected also. Why do you hide from that, American less than? Don't be less than a man. Be honorable. Speak for the rights of which we cherish. Being represented fair as freely. So this is important. Now, I have other issues involving my circumstance regarding the recent murder of my mother. Very disturbing. It is even for me, a guy who handles all kinds of very difficult matters. The city felt it important to murder my mother as a way, well, whatever, I don't want to put in too much for speculation, but I'll tell you, my mom goes into the hospital with a thyroid condition, and they say, no, your mother's in here under comfort care. We're going to deprive her all medications and poison her to death, giving her medications to stop her from breathing and spread infections. I call the police. I got to get my mom out of here. No, the cops aren't coming. We already have this already set up with all the police of our province. They are forbidden to investigate these murders that are transpiring, not only against my mother, but numbers suggest in the thousands and thousands of poor folks that live in our city because they can't afford the time to fight back themselves, nor can I almost, but I'm doing whatever I can. They told me my mom had multiple organ failure and was dead. I recovered her from the bed and she didn't have multiple organ failure. The police refused to come. The editor or the person who runs the news department at the Winnipeg Sun, I believe it was the editor, laughed at me. That's not a story we would cover. You know, they're prepared to murder us. The newspapers here. The Sun isn't really a newspaper. It's like these tabloid sports rags. You know, people who are suffering from brain damage would purchase such godless tripe to tell tales such as the Taliban did 9/11, and they're all in favor of, just beating our city down as crime victims further, not addressing the fact that the casinos are taking 80%, but the newspapers say they're only taking 4 or 6. But it's a lie, right? So their position here to not defend innocent murder victims falling at the Health Science Center in collusion with our police department and so on, it seems quite, severely draconian and pure wicked evil, the worst of Stalin and Hitler. But the thing about it is, can you think of one cop that would stand a position to argue that in the public? No, they have to keep the cops unaware also. They have to make sure the cops aren't made privy to the reality. So they don't allow me to file a report at the police station. I go to the police station. I go, I want to file a report. Somebody murdered my mom. Oh, it's John again now. You're not. Don't you know already? Through the 6 times you've been here, we will not allow you to file a criminal complaint. What are you going to do? I'm going to call on officers of law. I'm going to call on soldiers, Canadian soldiers, to defend the city of Winnipeg. I've contacted the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister tells me there's nothing he can do. You are fighting in the defense of the Prime Minister who claims he is powerless. You are fighting in the defense of honorable police officers who are not going to put up with this any longer. They murdered my mother right in front of me. They poisoned her to death, and they say that's the policy, depriving the patient medicines that she needs while giving her devil's breath and fentanyl. And she has no pain, right? And these 2 poisons mixed together caused instant paralysis, and she succumbed to death shortly thereafter. So what are we going to do? We're going to put up with this? Or are we going to fight back for our rights being fairly represented? We fight back for our rights being fairly represented. That means we're calling a election on American territory with paper ballots only, as then that way we have a receipt. Those who disagree, we should at least freely talk about it being formally executed for high treason. You know, those that say, we don't want receipts. Think about having them formally executed for high treason, right? They're trying to murder America. Yeah, you don't want a receipt. We don't think so. Okay, so this is a test. Let's see how this worked out. Check it 1 2. Check it 1 2. Yeah, so I wanted to try that. Now let's go to this. So we got some time here. Yeah, there's a frame rate on that was pretty poor, but I'm hoping this will be better. Maybe not.
Comrade Sanders to the woodshed. Why am I doing this? Well, just like Obama in 2008 and 2012, there are a lot of well-meaning anti-war, anti-corporate welfare types who are Bernie supporters, who just don't seem to be able to see through his deceptions and rhetoric. Again, just like with Obama, a lot could be cleared up by looking at his voting record. Judge a man by what he does, not by what he says. And some will ask me, why aren't you bashing Hillary? Oh, I will be. Don't worry. But her ills are pretty transparent. I mean, the woman...
This guy is so awesome. He does a lot of great stuff. I just want to pause for a moment and say that, yeah, I mean, we want to bring, if I win the election as I should, being truthful, you must demand for yourself included. So we should be winning this hands down. We definitely want Ryan in the administration somewhere, or we'll be definitely listening to his ideas because he's got a lot to offer.
Laughs about killing people.
We came, we saw, he died.
Yeah, millions, well, easily over a million. They bombed the nation 68,000 times, and only civilian strikes. No, there's no military or government to bomb. He didn't have a military or a government or a federal government. That was his philosophy, his Green Book philosophy, that demanded instant death sentences against anybody who would use military-grade weaponry on the populace. That all were ordered. Even Gaddafi, you would kill Gaddafi instantly if he was found responsible for using military, no matter what the reason was. So it's somewhat faulted in that way, but you know, in other ways, it was very powerful. He had some awesome ideas on how to find ourselves as civilized. The only thing is, well, there were a couple faults that he didn't account for quite right, believing that people would react half human, but they don't. Like, that's the thing. Americans don't. Look at my situation. I've explained Sandy Hook. They're gunning down little kids, 6 and 7 year olds. And I explain it in like 2 or 3 paragraphs. Nobody will forward it. So that's what Gaddafi missed, is that most people are pretty despicable and evil, and they're not worth much, you know, that because you tell them, here's how Sandy Hook happened. Why don't you express a care for these children's lives? Why would you not forward that information? It's Adam Lanza's like 6 foot, well, he's about 6'3", right? They say he's a 12-year-old, appearing to be a 12-year-old with tiny little feet wearing sneakers. But the last photo we have of him, he's taller than his dad, right? The photo they're using of him was like from a decade earlier, or quite a few years earlier anyway. The eyewitness, Sally Cox, says the shooter's wearing boots. The suspect, claimed to be Adam Lanza, appears to be 12 years old, and is wearing sneakers. According to the autopsy, we have the photographs of his body given to the public. You can get the photographs, right? You'll look and see nobody on Earth, right? And using the internet, nobody on Earth, right? So we get these visions of either we are being censored and controlled, as it appears to, unless you're just all subhumans and you can't find it within yourself to click like for justice for your own family, for your own worth here as a fellow human being. But you know, so that's the evidence. You go and you know, I could speak for an hour, and I have many times prior. They never check the school. EMS are never allowed in there to save the children's lives who are bleeding to death right at the front fucking door. They're right there. They're feet away from the front door. No ambulance can come to their rescue. We hear them moaning in agony. Police officers repeatedly begging for ambulances, like something like 50 or more calls to EMS to please bring an ambulance to the school. They scream and scream and scream, and you can get those recordings. Yeah, but so what? It's not on Alex Jones' show. I don't see it on the YouTubes anywhere. So what? But I've been there like since, you know, I rushed as quick as I could to get through the evidence when the crime happened, and then put out the information. Go, no, we already know how it happened. It's all a hoax. So all these people, which, you know, say they're truthers, they don't want the truth to prevail. Right now they look like they're being evil and stupid. And they don't want to learn from life and the experience to become something better. Nah, they've already answered that already. You just dismiss all the information. You don't have to research shit. It's all hoax. Anyway, back to Ryan.
It's Bernie who needs to be explained, and not just because of the election either. He needs to be exposed because of his backwards economic policies and his hypocrisy in foreign policy. Bernie Sanders is not a peace candidate. Barack Obama was not a peace candidate. And you would have known that if you had looked at his record instead of his rhetoric. We'll start with foreign policy since the president has more control over that, and we'll get into Bernie Sanders' idiotic economic policies later. Those feeling the burn are going to cling to his one vote against the second Iraq war. Well, I'd like to point out that a lot of Democrats voted against that war. They weren't really voting against the war, they were voting against George Bush. There was a divide about how we went to war, not that we went to war. The Democrats wanted it to be more multilateral. The Republicans were more for the unilateral. They had a coalition which basically consisted of just the UK. It was pretty much solo an American war, though. But Bernie did not have a problem with attacking Iraq. It was actually a problem with George Bush. Bernie is a company man. He votes Democrat 96% of the time. And when suddenly Obama had the war, he was okay with it. When Clinton wanted a war, he was okay with it. As long as there was a D next to the guy's name, it was okay to kill Iraqis. And Bernie Sanders voted to finance that war while Bush was president, even multiple times, even after Abu Ghraib. Of course, he also supported the war in Afghanistan and still does. He's a company man. Obama is for the Iran deal, and so is Bernie. And yet, both of them supported placing sanctions on Iran. Of course, Bernie likes sanctions. He voted to put sanctions on Libya and Iran and Iraq. Hillary Clinton rightly criticized Bernie and pointed out his hypocrisy when she said, 2 points. 1, Senator Sanders voted in 1998 on what I think is fair to call a regime change resolution with respect to Iraq, calling for the end of Saddam Hussein's regime. He voted in favor of regime change in Libya, voted in favor of Security Council being an active participant in setting the parameters of what we would do, which of course we followed through on. Yes, Bernie voted for the Iraq Liberation Act of 1998. Some of you may remember that gruesome video of Albright when she was asked if it was worth it to kill 500,000 people, most of whom were children, and she said, I think the price is worth it.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And you know, is the price worth it? I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it. 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 We think the price is worth it.
They were talking about the sanctions that had been placed on Iraq. 500,000 people had died. Now remember, this video was from 1997. They had 6 more years of sanctions after that. So a lot more than 500,000 people died of starvation. And yes, most of them were children. The Iraq Liberation Act calling for regime change was in 1998. So Bernie Sanders, knowing that the sanctions had killed hundreds of thousands of people, mostly children, wanted more sanctions. In fact, he wanted regime change. He was completely for going to war with Iraq as long as Clinton was president or Obama was president. He only voted against Bush. He voted to put sanctions on Iran and Libya. He voted to bomb Kosovo. One of his staff members resigned over it. From Kosovo to Syria, Bernie Sanders has been pro-war and pro-intervention. He's pro-Al-Qaeda in Syria. He was for the coup with the neo-Nazis in Ukraine. About Ukraine and Russia, he stated, let's be clear, Russia's aggressive actions in Crimea and in Ukraine have brought about a situation where President Obama and NATO, correctly I believe, are saying, you know what, we're going to have to beef up our troop level in that part of the world and tell Putin that his aggressiveness is not going to go unmatched, that he is not going to get away with his aggressive action. Notice how many times he says aggressive. I happen to believe that Putin is doing what he is doing because his economy is increasingly in shambles and he's trying to rally people in support of him. The bottom line is the president is right. We have to put more money. We have to work with NATO to protect Eastern Europe against any kind of Russian aggression. Russian aggression, and they gave $1 billion to the coup in Kiev, and it was a coup. Victoria Nuland's on tape talking about who they're going to install in power, and yes, Yats was installed. They did not vote for him. And Russia did not invade Crimea. Crimea left through peaceful referendum. Those people voted to join Russia. They went back to Russia. Crimea was originally Russian. The people who live there speak Russian. Not a shot was fired. Not a single bullet. No one died. That's not an invasion. An invasion is what the U.S. is doing in Afghanistan, which Bernie supports, even after they bomb hospitals. An invasion is what Israel does routinely to Gaza, which Bernie also supports. In town hall meeting where people brought it up to him, this is while Gaza Strip was being bombed back into the Stone Age, kids being shelled on the beach, pediatric hospitals being blown apart, UN centers, you name it. And Bernie tells him to shut up. This is the one time you'll see this guy get animated.
You can listen to him promote the state line. Hamas is firing missiles. They're coming from residential areas. Really, because Israel's bombing kids in their bedrooms. I don't think any missile launchers were from there. It's disingenuous BS. If Israel cared about civilians, then why would they have a food blockade and routinely murder them daily and demolish houses and burn babies and everything else? They don't care about civilians. And the tunnels, the majority of the tunnels went to Egypt, not to Israel. And it was for trade. It's trying to get around the blockade. They're not offensive tunnels digging underneath Israel ready to pop out and kill people. Only 3 Israelis died, and that's because a lot of them went out to the beach to watch the actual missiles hitting Gaza. It was rockets that were fired back, not missiles. They don't have warheads. They don't have propulsion systems. It's more like a potato gun, seriously. And those people got hit by shrapnel. Thousands of Gazans were killed, and this is cyclical. But he doesn't give a damn.
You have a situation where Hamas is sending missiles into Israel. Okay. You know where some of those missiles are coming from? They're coming from populated areas. That's a fact. Hamas has used money that came into Gaza for construction purposes, and God knows they need roads and all the things that they need, and use some of that money to build these very sophisticated tunnels into Israel for military purposes.
For survival purposes.
Okay, but one second.
Yes,
No, I don't want to be interrupted. Question was asked, it's a fair question, and I'm trying to.
They don't have the right to
Look,
resist.
if you don't,
Yes, they did.
you know,
Gaza is like.
excuse me, shut up! You don't have the microphone.
The man's yelling because he doesn't have a microphone, but he simply said, don't occupied populations have the right to resist? Because they do. Of course, Bernie just ignores that, tells them to shut up, acts like it. They've been fighting for so long. Do you have a magical solution? I don't think so, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's called end the occupation. Most people fight you when you occupy their country and steal their resources and murder their families.
He's completely a Zionist shill, to be fair. So is Hillary. Basically, all of them are. But they don't try and front this facade that they're peace candidates either. Bernie does, and Bernie isn't. Bernie Sanders supports the moderate rebels in Syria, actively giving aid to al-Qaeda. He called Bashar al-Assad the evil dictator. He holds on that point. He's not changing at all from Obama. Assad's a dictator and has to go. We're going to finance ISIS and al-Nusra covertly by giving to the FSA and moderate rebels. And Bernie's pro-drone strike. Everybody got on Obama's case when he's killing Americans with drones and has a kill list.
Yeah, moderate
And how
is
cowardly it is, and how dastardly
of life and God. You know, they all boycott elections, right? They don't support fair elections. And Obama says we support them because they'll help in the transition. They oppose elections. Who's going to vote for Al-Qaeda? American less than. Pay attention. Now, you can learn from this experience and go, yeah, I see how I've been controlled by Alex Jones. I sacrificed blinded in massive error, but I like that because I have no responsibilities. See, when you go for the truth, you have a responsibility. You know, when I know these things, I have to keep speaking out about them, and my life is given for that purpose, and now they've murdered my mother. You know, and you don't want to help me? Why don't you help me, man? You'd be helping thousands and thousands and thousands of other people that don't have the skills that I possess. And the evidence, I have all the evidence. A videotape of the nurses telling me my mom has multiple organ failure and is dead. And I revive her. I give that evidence to the police, and to the College of Physicians and Surgeons, and they do nothing. And then they doctor the medical records and they say nothing, none of that ever happened. But I have it on videotape and speaking to the doctor. I've heard, the whole case. I can speak for hours now, but as I've talked earlier to you, but it's important for you to take a stand, perhaps with this video. Look at all the issues I've covered. Would I not be the greatest president you could ever imagine? And then even more so, because I have so many other issues that are so beautiful. I don't always have to be fighting bad guys being presidential, where I can bring free energy to everyone of Earth so easily. I've got numerous inventions for free energy, and I give them to everybody for free. And that one, it causes me to become very introspective, and I don't really want to go there with you right now, and what's the point? But you really do yourself in when I explain free energy and I say I'm running to be the president. It changes our lives almost instantly. Everybody with free energy means we're going to be doing a lot less and achieving much more. Our money will go a great deal farther. There's no limit on how much electricity you want to express, as long as it's not to deprive another their rights to be freely just the same. Right? But the ocean goes up and down 40 feet. So you just harness a buoy to the ocean floor, right? Like a gear ratio, like a 10-speed bike. Well, imagine like the arm of a 10-speed bike, but it was like, maybe it could be really long, huge. Let's say it's half a kilometer long. And I'm trying to make it so you can visualize how this works. And say it's just like lying along the floor bed of the ocean, right? The ocean floor. And as you pull it up, it's just as when you go forward on a bicycle, because the gear ratio is so high, it requires a lot more pressure, but it spins the back tire like crazy. Now, how do we create electricity? Just by getting something to turn. That's what all these these water electric dams are about, and so on. It's called a turbine. If you can turn it, it'll have copper and going over a magnet, and it'll release energy in the form of electricity. So that's all it is you got an arm there, and it's on a buoy. A buoy is something that floats on the ocean surface. It's like full of air, a plastic buoy, so ships can see where we're at, and people too. Particularly how close to some dangerous reef you might be, and so on. Well, that's what I'm talking about. But imagine that buoy as a square kilometer, man, or 10 square kilometers. There's no limit on size. It can be broken up into pieces, like square pieces, but just say the whole thing's a square kilometer. And it's all got one big chain, titanium chain, that goes to that arm on the ocean floor. Now, the water goes up 30, 40 feet, right? So you got endless tons of pressure that turn the turbine every day of the week as the ocean tides go up and down. So that's an invention that gives everybody safe, free, clean energy forever, from now till the end of our time on Earth, and maybe we're going off in the galactic frontier searching for intelligence somewhere. That's a real scientific possibility for some form of conscious energy we see witnessed by NASA and everybody doing radio silence. Every time that happens, they just go radio silent. And so the nature of doubt is very powerful. Like, look at that. I've talked about it at great length a couple of years ago at a YouTube video. But the majority of people just psychologically, well, they lie to themselves. They're like atheists in some ways. I guess we're all like atheists maybe in this kind of argument, where instead of just saying to yourself, well, I don't know what it means, like, what is it? It's something that's intelligent because it's moving independent and trying to, in one video, they're trying to tell us something. But in these other videos, they're all sort of independently moving about, but they're gathered together. We figure they cannot be comprised of any mass due to the fact that they're in outer space. And yet they're alive. But are they in outer space? They hover inside, just outside our atmosphere. They're able to pop in and out of it, as we witness. That's what I mean. Like, you see how I take this, man of God. Just say for what it is. 99% probably of the people just go, shut up, I'm running away. I'm like an atheist. I don't care what physics says about the nature of reality. Fuck that. I don't care what any of the great philosophers think either, or any one of the prophets. See, all atheists have to ignore every single prophet we have, right? Because they all say the same thing. It's called the golden rule. No, they've got to bastardize God's will to be just and into something greatly ridiculous. And then their absolutionism is a disease of consciousness, right? They tell us what a sentence means. Well, why don't you spend a fucking 5 minutes on that sentence and think about it again? How about, they're so, yeah, they're like children, is what they are. It's like anarchism is like that too, where you'll find it's mostly kids, right? Because they just don't understand just of what they're claiming. Yeah, we can govern ourselves. That's right. That's what it is. It's how we break up these divisions, and how we shouldn't be when we're depriving innocent people of their lives, stealing, murdering people. Nobody should be in favor of that, and yet it continues. Obama wars democracies, dropping bombs on hospitals. Well, Bernie says, go war, go. And everybody says, no, that's not the vision I have of Bernie when he's speaking at the lectern there, telling us about corporate greed. But not corporate criminality. Just like Alex Jones, and never has in almost his entire career. There might be one exception of one show maybe that I missed or something. But he's never there to advance a true defense of your rights. Perhaps on the Second Amendment, you could argue that's it. And so what? What does a gun do? It doesn't do anything. It's a tool. Somehow you, by owning a gun, just automatically brings freedom is a crock of shit. So I'm not anti-gun either. Like, don't get me wrong on this. The way the situation is, it's good that people can get access to firearms because they're just it's an endless supply on the streets, American streets there are. So we have no choice. But arguing the merits of pro and con, there is no easy answer because we're not dealing with what the issues are. We're claiming, as Alex Jones wants to sell, it's all about guns and being able to shoot a guy in the back. Go with the audio of him talking about the sound of bullets going into the backs of those two black men that were gunned down in the yard there needlessly. He says that was the sound of freedom. The shotgun blasts going into the backs, the flesh of those two innocent black men. They're innocent. And Alex Jones, as recorded on his show, said that was the sound of liberty, the bullets going through their backs and killing them both instantly. Right? There was nothing brought to understand what they were doing. It suggested, they were breaking into the house and they were leaving. The cops already had them surrounded. There was nowhere for them to run. They weren't even running. They had their hands up in the air. And he says, hands up, and bang. Here's how it goes. Hands up, bang. No, wait. Hands up, bang. That's the time frame between this guy who we have the recording of him on. This is Alex Jones' friend. We have the recording of him on 9/11 where he wants the reason to shoot them. He wants to shoot them. They say, hey, you just stay back. We got the situation under control. And the police did have it under control, and they were surrendering themselves. And this guy, from his window, who called the police on them, and rightly so, for breaking in, as he thought, into the house next door. But that's not necessarily so. That's why they're innocent until proven otherwise. There are a great many other possibilities that I could go on for fucking decades. That's the nature of reality. That's why a person's innocent until proven otherwise. So we don't know anything of them except they're giving themselves up willingly to the police. And this guy, we have recorded him saying this. Put your hands up. Bang. And no, wait. Put your hands up. Bang, bang. And they're both dead. He shoots them both in the back. And Alex Jones says the bullets going through their backs to murder those two innocent black men is the true sound of liberty. He doesn't advance justice, Alex Jones, never in his entire career. He is fucking with your head, man. He thinks you are powerless and can never comprehend. But I am here to claim that, yes, you can. Ha, ha, ha. Yes, you can. Why are you fearful here? It's beyond the constraints of bigotry, which is self-imposed on who you think of yourself, what you think of yourself. I can generalize and use the label system too, but I'm very much cognizantly aware of where people are faulted. Even one of my best friends does this it's just who he is or whatever. And sometimes we have discussions on it where I'm claiming, look, you're just not fair. You understand? Like, imagine it's a teenager. He's just coming up in the world. He thinks he's that of which you describe as not good or belligerent. And he needs to tie his character to something because he's very insecure with the world that surrounds him. And perhaps he's even brighter than the typical kid and hasn't suffered massive vaccinations. He might be actually facing the nature of the absolute. And, of course, it not being present in our science textbooks, can befall him into a position where he becomes victim to his own irrational fears. And my friend, yeah, whatever, Johnny, still, and then he'll do it again. But he's still an honorable guy. So, but anyway, we want to treat people fair when it comes to enforcing our will to defend the community. If we're just randomly mass murdering people, as the free press is as a complicit conspirator by not bringing this to our attention to warn innocent families. The free press does not want to warn families in Winnipeg that they're mass murdering people at the Health Science Center. Videos and phone calls, all given to you for free. They're uploaded to something like 89,000 different locations. So it's not going anywhere anytime this decade, I hope, anyway, because it's a lot of places. And then it gets mirrored anonymously into files that are randomly, it's just not going. That was, part of the thing. Even though there's no humans present, I'm hoping if our species doesn't completely do ourselves in, there may be some human beings somewhere in the not too distant decades to come that are a little bit more freer to think than we are currently, because it's just abysmal that you can't understand that the words I speak are critical life and death issues involving yourself. This is your life. This is your world, especially if you live in Winnipeg. Fuck. They're murdering people, my friends, right? The free press has always denied you to hear my words spoken in print, because I explain how we're being robbed at the Manitoba lotteries, right? This banker note fellow and his band of criminals, he's a billionaire. He lives in the city of Winnipeg, and he's a billionaire. Where do you think he got all that money from? It's all criminal, right? He says they only take 4%. Now you're taking 80. Who are you lying? The idea of scratch and win tickets. This is how he's a billionaire who sells scratch and win tickets to Winnipeggers at our stores, and because he prints them all, and he's a billionaire. Just try to figure that out, okay? He's a billionaire, right? But let's say you print up 100 tickets. I print up 100 scratch and win tickets. Half of them are free ticket wins. Bingo, you're a winner. Fuck, you won a free ticket. Well, I just paid out 50%, right? And what did I pay out? Nothing. Pay out fucking nothing. That's all he does. This scam, right? There are other scams too. I noticed that some of these scratch and win tickets that are losers are winners. People wouldn't check your ticket if you thought it was a losing ticket, right? But just go and get it scanned. And I don't want to give out you see, if I give out too much information on this, people think, oh, I'm going to rook the crooks by taking advantage of this myself. I'll go to the nearest store and do what you claim. I don't do it either, because I don't want. No, you can't. You can't make. You can. Yeah, there's no effective way, because it's only. But anyway, I have noticed this. So, but anyway, how the money comes back to our community is always at a loss. We got to pay the salaries of a private company billionaire. If we as the government wanted to do something to raise tax revenues, we wouldn't give that authority to a private company who over the space of only a few years has become a billionaire. Right? He's a billionaire. A billionaire. And he supposedly works contracts for our city or our province. Right? The free press doesn't want you to know that. Why would we do that? Why would we give such authority to a private individual to just steal all our prize winnings, right? Because the audits of how the Manitoba lotteries are run, it clearly indicates it's highway robbery. They count credits as dollars. So what does that mean? It means you can promise any return and take any percentage. You see how the free press would rather you die? Would you rather die too than listen to me speak like that? That's fucking super smart. You have to know what you're talking about if you disagreed with Johnny, and Johnny would love you for it too. He would never dissuade you from doing just that, because I can learn new things also. But I know this is in fact the case because I've gone over the books numerous times since 1996. It's exactly what's going on. They're committing criminal fraud, and the free press think it benefit not only to murder our families but to steal from the poor, because they're not going to bring that to your attention, because we wouldn't decide to sacrifice our lives to be murdered. Who gains from this outside of Dr. Collister and Nurse Collette and Delaney on the 4th floor, 4H? Right? They need to be arrested. I need honorable men and women of our military and the standing police officers at the Winnipeg Police to stand with me. You know, I'm not opposing the police. I'm opposing, you know, whatever that is at your desk at the PSP, Mike. He appears to be about 23 years old and does suffer from brain damage. He's just very, very slow. He did very poor in high school, right? And so I have to insult him like that as a benefit. I'm actually doing him a favor by claiming he's so dumb. Because if he was aware of what he's done, he would be facing something close to a life-term prison sentence. To say he will not accept my complaint of a murder transpiring, my own mother, because as so recorded, he says he is not going to do that for our community because in every case, when it goes to court, the judge always sides for the doctor. You need to be arrested. It doesn't work that way. You're saying that the whole system is so evil and corrupt, is what you're claiming. Or you're saying that your false god, Dr. Collister, can never make an error. He's like the Pope to this guy. Anyway, he's not enforcing the Criminal Code of Canada. He's not doing what honorable police officers are supposed to be doing, sitting at that desk. Also, the other partner there, that woman, right? She's very evil, right? Telling me didn't get out. Practically, I have it recorded, saying we don't want any more of your DVDs. That's how she says it. Fuck, she just turns a total fascist Nazi, right? And they made no effort to investigate anything. They didn't. The doctor is begging for the police as well in what she's made bear as witnessed herself firsthand. She's my mother's fucking doctor, right? They wouldn't make one phone call to her to as I've detailed how the investigations would be conducted. It doesn't even matter what she says. We still find, but she would tell the truth, no doubt. But even if it was, as you would claim, trying to find an excuse for this cop not to go to prison, you would suggest that, yeah, well, maybe she would say you were incorrect. I'd still be correct, though. And again, you witness the awesomeness of who it is ourselves to be fairly recognized here. I'm not making that up. It's not I didn't murder anybody. They're fucking committing murder. So the nature of reality is like this. It's the dictated circumstance of the evidence. It's evidence which is crucial, right? You see the evidence of the nurses declaring my mom dead. She has multiple organ failure, right? And me having discussions with the doctor. And then all of a sudden they remove it from the record. Listen to Dr. Seamus tell you himself. It's not there. They just removed the whole entire matter. What are you going to do about it? Then as I wrote to the College of Nurses, say, look at the criminality of what the head of nursing for the entire hospital does, as witnessed with the evidence firsthand. She admitted that she doctored the medical record regarding my mom screaming throughout the night. Because in that morning, I got there just prior to 6 o'clock in the morning to talk to the nurse who was watching my mom throughout the evening, the only human being that I ever found present in that entire facility. And she told me it was a great night for my mom, where there was no reason for her to be given poison. But they don't need reasons, right? They're trying to commit murder. They're not trying to do my mom any favors, not this particular nurse. But this is what she tells me, that it was such an uneventful evening and your mom seemed to sleep very soundly. And then the head of nursing for the entire hospital approaches me at about 7:45, and I have it recorded. And she says, my mom was screaming all through the night. And I said to her, as recorded, I say, was that part of the medical record for last night? She goes, yeah. And I said, well, I just talked to this girl. She said, it never happened. And so I called the College of Physicians, the College of Nurses. And I said, this has got to be it. You've got to save my mom's life. They did nothing. And all they had to do was talk to the nurse who was the night nurse for my mom the day prior. And that the head of nursing for the entire province admits she doctored the medical records. But they continually do this in front of me, a man of great wisdom I am, that I see through almost all their lies. And I'm begging for help for the police. That never happened because Mike says the judge always says the doctor's right. The doctor wanted to save my mom's life. Can we hear some more, Ryan?
Is because they end up killing more civilians than they do terrorists. They do double taps where they go and hit the paramedics. They're causing terrorism more than they're preventing terrorism. But Bernie loves the drone programs. He's an imperialist. Bernie Sanders has supported U.S. intervention in Somalia, Haiti, Bosnia, Liberia, Zaire, the Congo, Albania, Sudan, Afghanistan, Yugoslavia, Libya, Syria, and Iraq. And he currently supports Saudi Arabia bombing Yemen. And he has the most ridiculous policy for ISIS where he thinks they can get the Saudis to help fight ISIS by putting boots in the ground. There's a pretext for you. The Saudis are funding ISIS. Now, either he's completely clueless or he just couldn't think of anything else to say.
So there's a unwillingness to recognize that the biggest part of this big problem the United States is now facing in Iraq and Syria is being driven by Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Turkey. These are U.S. allies, supposedly close U.S. allies in the region. So what Sanders has been, his sort of talking point when it gets to this issue is, well, we need to get the Saudis and the Qataris to put skin in the game, as he said during the last debate, or get their hands dirty. Well, the point is that they've gotten their hands very dirty and there's lots of skin in the game, but it's really on the side of supporting what you might call their paramilitary. And their paramilitary forces are Al-Qaeda, to some extent the Islamic State, and groups like Ahrar al-Sham, which is fights hand in glove with Al-Qaeda in Syria, and has received TOW missiles and other sophisticated American hardware to carry out attacks against the Syrian army, working side by side with Al-Qaeda. So what you really have is this Sanders sort of playing a kind of a clever talking point. You know, the rich guys in the region ought to do more, but what they're doing is not helping to fight ISIS or helping to fight Al-Qaeda. It's been on the other side. They've actually been helping those extremist groups.
But of course, Saudi Arabia is using the F-35 in their campaign against Yemen. And Bernie Sanders has voted for all the corporate welfare for the F-22 and the F-35, neither one of which work. I'd like you to hear from Mr. Sanders right now.
When I was a kid, I always admired the Sheriff of Nottingham. That dirty Robin Hood would always take money away from the lawful government of Prince John and give it back to the people it was taken from. What, was he a libertarian or something? Doesn't he know the government is better at redistributing the wealth? That's why I like the Sheriff of Nottingham. He collected taxes for the state. The state knows best how to spend the money. Like me, I helped collect $1.5 trillion in taxes for the F-35, a fighter jet that doesn't even work. But you know me, if you don't work, I want to give you money. Another plus is that the F-35 was jointly built with Israel. You see, we're generous enough to make our corporate welfare international. But I say this to you, Ryan Dawson. If killing kids in Palestine and Yemen and wasting lots of money was good enough for Obama, who was elected twice, then why not for me? I want to waste even more money increasing Obama's taxes and continue the welfare for warfare state. College kids will look past it because I can promise magical free stuff.
The F-35, which was jointly built with the racial apartheid state Israel, costs $1.5 trillion. This is very significant, as that corporate welfare alone accounts for 8.3% of the $18 trillion national debt. For all of Bernie's pontificating indignation about the 1% and Wall Street and corporate lobbies having too much influence, this is the epitome of hypocrisy. This is, hands down, the most bloated military pork in the history of the world. This plane has cost more than a war. The best part is, and this is such a shining example of government efficiency, the $1.5 trillion and counting war toy of Lockheed welfare Queen Martin doesn't even work. Let me tell you just how bad this piece of junk is.
Costs for equipment of all sorts have steadily skyrocketed. The latest example, the F-35, shows how wasteful our system has become. No one knows the exact cost, but it's vastly more than originally estimated.
It's criminal.
The F-35 has become the most flagrant example.
It's criminal. You know, we go, oh yeah, well, it's just a waste. Waste is not the right terminology. They don't give you the books
say that's top secret. They need to be arrested. As president, we will be clearing house at the Pentagon. Everyone will be highly suspected for high treason, just for the fact that they work there, without speaking a word in defense for the oath they gave to be committed to the cause of liberty as justice for all, God and country. Right? They say it's none of our business where all the trillions of dollars went disappearing. Yeah, it is America's business. We're getting all that money back. Any soldier disagrees is a traitor, should be tried for as much. What soldier's going to say, yeah, we don't want to get back all the stolen money. I'm gonna die as a thief, opposing America, opposing the flag, top secretly. Not when I'm speaking. You see, the power of truth is so revolutionary as well, because as I've claimed much earlier in the show, of which I hope you're still here listening now, it doesn't necessitate possession. It's not my possession. Yeah, I don't want to take from you. It's not mine. To treat ourselves fair means you would win too. You treat others fair of the society you're in, you're going to prosper. Johnny or no Johnny, God or no God, right? It's all up to you to will to be fair here included, and we together can shine found unbound to the glorious forever wonder. Because I'm very much familiar of the physics on these relationships. Well, not really on consciousness, but it doesn't give me no special powers, unfortunately, to insist that police officers be honorable. But we can when you understand physics, it in turn sort of it reflects off your own mind, because you understand the limit, just the nature of consciousness, because it has those same properties as described in physics. And so it gets quite profound. Part of it, though, the fear there is you've got to develop these skills on your own for me to speak freely of them, which I do have from time to time. I mean, if you're really curious, I'm sure you could find the answers of which you'd be seeking. But on general terms, you don't get too much involved in the nature of how everything can be, has a fluidity to it, because you see many people suffer. They lose themselves, unfortunately, or they become what is the classic terminology for schizophrenia, where people but they fall into their own fears and they manifest as hallucinations, and they can't make sense of it, because that's just the potential power for us to be conscious and play, creatively. With our circumstance, always never absent the ground, though, of which we walk upon. So when you're grounded, you can then fly. And that's, I'm telling you, as best as I can describe. What power does it give me? It won't defend my mother, and my mother is now murdered. The most important thing than practically anything else, right? So I'm not going to talk too much. I don't want to talk more about this, but it's, what kind of life would this be for me to lead, right? In a world that cares never for innocent murder victims falling every day in Winnipeg. And no, I can't click like, fuck, who cares? Fuck. Kill my neighbor's kids too. Like, they're conned in America to die, warrant for bad guys, and you can't fucking. But, like, it happened, though. I have the evidence for that. There was a brief time at Facebook where they weren't censoring me, and I'd make a post at Bernie, and my fucking thing would twist like a fucking Rolodex. Like comments. Oh, you're fucking. This is fucking amazing. Fucking amazing. Fucking amazing. Fucking amazing. Holy fuck, you're awesome. Oh, God, gone. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Sorry, Johnny. Yeah. Verify. I already verified. Yeah. Verify again. We can't let anybody fucking look at this fucking shit. Why? I'm coming from. I try as fallible. I try to come from an indivisible property of the matters of which I'm writing, where it doesn't matter what you think of me. Even you don't like me. Okay, fuck you too. But look, they're still stealing 16 trillion, right? See how that doesn't matter? That money is still stolen as a fact. Nobody can deny. It's a federal audit by professional auditors who say they've made off with 16 trillion. But it's certain. And part of your existence is to give your life in error to bankers. Like, they rule your existence as for why you've given up your thoughts to question really what's transpiring, instead blindly in massive error, going, yeah, just let these private pirates take issue of my life. I don't need to know anymore where that magic money comes from.
And it's, you know, anyway, I don't want to get on that path. I want to actually end the show very soon because, oh, we're still, it says we're not, yeah. Why is the screen blank though? I guess we have had some problems. So I'm going to call an end to the show now. And thank you so much for listening. Spread the good news. Okay. Talk to you soon. All right. God bless.